Expose everyone behind this network. We keep moving until their entire empire is erased.
For months, the roads across Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania looked no different from any other. Truck stops, gas stations, exit ramps slicing through rolling hills and industrial towns. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. And that was the point. Because the most dangerous operations don't arrive with sirens, they arrive quietly, wrapped inside routines, buried in normal life. What no one saw was that beneath interstate traffic, freight movements, and night deliveries, a network was growing, carefully, patiently, like roots digging into concrete. Not loud, not flashy, efficient. A logistics web that had nothing to do with packages, but everything to do with poison. For over a year, federal agencies tracked fragments of a growing shadow. Not criminals posting on social media, not loud gangs flashing money. This network didn't chase attention, it chased invisibility. Shipments moved through fake distribution companies. Vehicles registered to shell businesses. Payments layered through digital systems that erased footprints faster than they created them. To most observers, it looked like nothing more than regional commerce humming along. To the analysts watching the data patterns, it looked like something breathing. The first red flag came from a shipping anomaly. A mid-sized logistics company in Ohio was receiving unusually frequent cargo movements from rural transfer points near the Appalachian Corridor. On paper, it handled basic industrial supplies and automotive parts. But the numbers didn't add up. The shipments were too frequent, too consistent, too precisely timed. Someone inside one of the data monitoring divisions noticed it, not because it stood out, but because it didn't. In fraud detection, perfectly smooth patterns are more suspicious than chaotic ones. Human behavior is messy. Systems that look too perfect usually aren't. From there, the thread spread. A small warehouse near the outskirts of Cleveland. A transport hub near the Pennsylvania border. A processing site hidden behind a registered agriculture business in West Virginia. All of them invisible to casual observation. Individually, they looked like nothing. Together, they formed a corridor. A narcotics artery running straight through the heart of the Rust Belt. But this wasn't a street operation. This wasn't a disorganized ring. This was infrastructure. And dismantling infrastructure requires patience. So instead of rushing in, agencies watched. They listened, they mapped, they traced. Every vehicle that left, every delivery that arrived, every bank transfer that didn't quite fit the normal rhythm of business activity. Day turned to week, week into month. And the picture sharpened. The organization operated like a corporation. No loud hierarchies, no obvious leaders, just roles, drivers, dispatchers, packaging workers, route coordinators, financial handlers. Each cell disconnected enough to be replaceable. Each node independent enough to protect the rest. It was built on efficiency, and that's what made it dangerous. Authorities didn't move until they saw the scale. When the estimated volume crossed multiple tons over several months, the strategy changed. This wasn't a local problem anymore. This was a regional contamination network. And the longer it operated, the deeper its roots grew. So instead of stopping one shipment, they prepared to stop the bloodstream. The final plan took coordination across federal and regional agencies, but it wasn't based on theatrics. No public announcements, no leaks, no press. The goal wasn't attention, the goal was disruption. They wanted to sever connections before they could adapt. Because these networks don't fight back with weapons, they fight back with reinvention. The operations happened across 3 states, almost simultaneously. Not dramatically, not like in movies. Quiet entrances, coordinated warrants. Teams moving through industrial spaces, office fronts, rural properties, and storage facilities that looked like they belonged to any ordinary business on any ordinary day. Workers were confused. Some resisted, most froze. Because when a machine runs long enough, people forget they're part of something illegal. Routine becomes normal, until it collapses. What they found wasn't a few boxes. It wasn't a couple of trucks. It was a system. Large quantities of narcotics stored in vacuum-sealed packaging. Cash reserves separated across multiple sites. Digital records fragmented into layers of decentralized storage. The total seized narcotics reached 3.8 tons. Not grams, not kilos, tons. An amount large enough to saturate entire regions for months. Along with it, over $4.1 million in physical and traceable assets. Money not stacked in flashy displays. Money hidden in walls, inside business accounts, converted through assets designed to blur origin and destination. But the true revelation wasn't the numbers. It was the structure. The network didn't revolve around one kingpin. It revolved around logistics, like a shipping empire, just repurposed. They had optimized routes, automated scheduling, fallback systems for disruptions. If one node fell, another absorbed the load. It was designed like infrastructure. And tearing down infrastructure doesn't echo loudly. It leaves silence instead. In Ohio, small distribution hubs that had operated like clockwork suddenly went dark. In West Virginia, vehicles that had moved daily through narrow mountain roads no longer came. In Pennsylvania, warehouses that looked normal from the outside became empty shells overnight. Communities didn't notice immediately, because invisible systems, when removed, don't leave obvious gaps. They leave subtle voids. But behind the scenes, the impact was immediate. Supply chains collapsed. Secondary networks that depended on those shipments scrambled. Contacts lost communication. What had taken years to build was dismantled in coordinated hours. Not through violence, through synchronization. Some people called it a victory. Others understood it differently. Because taking down one network doesn't eliminate demand. It just disrupts supply. And disruption forces adaptation. Still, disruption buys time. Time for intervention. Time for awareness, time for prevention, time that communities rarely get. In the days that followed, details remained limited, not because there was nothing to report, but because revealing too much would open doors for replacement networks. Law enforcement doesn't just fight crime, it fights learning patterns. The moment criminal networks know how they were discovered, they evolve. What remained, however, was impact. Workers who thought they were just part of a logistics chain confronted reality. Communities caught between economic survival and systemic exploitation had to reflect. And families across the region felt a temporary shift in a flow that had slowly poisoned their neighborhoods. Because these networks never market themselves as destruction. They market themselves as opportunity. When media reports later summarized it, they reduced it to numbers: 3.8 tons. $4.1 million. But those figures only scratch the surface. They don't show the years of quiet data analysis, the cross-border cooperation, the pressure behind closed doors, the tension of waiting while a system grows just enough to expose itself fully. And they don't show the human side, the informants who lived in fear, the analysts who pieced together fragments of activity that made no sense alone, the officers who stepped into buildings not knowing what was behind the next door. Not chasing glory, chasing disruption, and that's the part people rarely understand. Most criminal networks don't collapse in dramatic endings. They collapse when their internal logic breaks, when coordination fails, when trust erodes, when logistics fall apart. Because they are built like machines, and machines don't scream when they die. They just stop functioning. After the seizures, life across Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania didn't transform overnight. No fireworks, no instant change, just a slower, heavier quiet. A quiet that meant a pipeline had closed. For now, because in the background of every crackdown, there's always someone watching, learning where the cracks formed, studying what went wrong, planning the next version. That's why enforcement isn't a finale. It's a cycle, but for a moment. Just one moment. The shadow that had moved across 3 states was visible. Not through fear, not through violence, through exposure. And sometimes that is the most powerful interruption of all.